Now I'm going to show you guys how you can actually create this texture very well. And remember, what we see here is final, this is nothing, okay? So we really need to actually make sure about this. Over here only the scale matters. So now when I'm talking about the diffuse, reflection, refraction, IOR, and I want to kind of create a fabric look, remember reflection I'm going to give slightly, not a lot, okay? So the IOR is going to be very reduced over here. The glossiness will also be reduced over here. The bump is going to be added, and for the bump I'm actually going to go to bitmap and add the same texture, so I can use that over here. And when I increase this, we'll actually get a nice cushiony look for this, something like this over here. You know, to enhance it even further, I can add fur at this point of time, as I showed you guys from geometry, and I can actually edit the fur settings to make it look very good. But I won't be doing that now. I'll do that when I come, you know, into the details of the fur. That time I will do that for you guys. But you can see how we have kind of, you know, created something really cool from this very easily, actually, just with a couple of settings over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into this now and show you guys what comes under the bitmap settings. So over here we have got some, so this is of course the file that we have selected, which is this. Then we have got the filter, which is minimap, no filter. You can actually see the changes over here. It's mostly about you seeing the changes and then understanding what is it going to look like. You can see filter blur is been put at 0.15. If you reduce it, then this is the most clear it can be. The more I increase it, the more the blurry it becomes. Why is that happening? Is because the blur actually picks up the 3D-ness in the whole thing. All right. And how VRay works is basically where it sees light, you know, light color, so like white and, you know, the lighter color, it actually thinks of that being up, and wherever it sees the dark color, it feels of that to be a dip or a depth inside. That's basically how it picks up the whole thing, all right, for it to look 3D. You've got something called as manipulation. You can see if we invert the texture, it will become something like this. Here we can actually see which is light and which is dark, and which is, and how is it actually going to look like. Then we've got insert alpha, so I don't really think that's necessary. Let's go back. You can actually see that it improves when we kind of see it completely with the invert texture. I really think you should do the invert texture, because then you guys will understand how the, you know, the filter blur and everything is making a lot of difference. After that, you've got placement. So you can see the placement is the whole texture. You can actually crop a part of the texture which you want. You can, you know, set it, you know, according to the whole height like this. But what happens with this is it starts to become, you know, bigger over here, more thicker over here, okay? So you can actually set that, you can set the size of how much you want, depending. So if it's a very big image, definitely crop it, but if it's a small image, then this is what the kind of texture we are looking for. So you can actually set that. Then you have got tile, so it will be in a tile format. You can switch that off, and actually it will go away from the tile. So you can see then it completely just vanishes off. So we need to make sure that we have the tile always switched on over here. So make sure you have the tile switched on. So when I go back, you can see how the map is actually taken over. So that this is basically called a map always, remember. Alright, then you've got noise. So here we've got animate that noise. Now you can actually animate the amount you want in it. So noise is basically this complete kind of a, you would want me to say, a very rough look to the texture, I would say. So you can see when I increase the size, let me just increase a couple of these points over here. This is actually going to start to add noise to it. And noise is something, UV noise, noise is something which we can use separately also. We will be doing that also in one of our projects. So we have 3 projects which we'll be doing at the end. So we'll be getting into a lot of the details in that, all right? Next we have the UVW. So here is the UV gen channel. Now this is something which you know, we are not really going to, you know, use a lot, but definitely it's given. And you can see when I increase the channels, I've also got the double-sided mode which I can put up over here. That means it is going to show on both the sides of the material. And definitely then you've got repeat, offset and mirror. This is basically for the texture. You can see simply the texture is getting mirrored the minute I do that. And we've got the vertical also for the texture, so it becomes horizontal and vertical, and this is right to left, and this is, you know, up and down. Alright, then we've got the rotation. I can actually change that also to, let's say, 60, enter. so it actually changes to 60 degrees. You can see that rotation taking place in that whole thing. So the more detail you want to add to it, the more you can. And that's basically about how you're going to place this whole thing. And I'm just going to go back, and you can see that this texture is looking something like what we want. And this is all done only from the quick settings under the generic. So depending on what the material is, first of all, you can use these three dots to see it in that way. Secondly, when you are using quick settings, if you know the material already, you can click on generic and select that material from here. And thirdly, if you want to create your own material, then remember you have to use all of these various options, as well as we have these pattern overlays over here, and we can enable them or disable them from here itself. So you can see when it's disabled, you can still have the texture because we have already given the bump. So that's basically about how you guys are going to completely create various different materials using only the quick settings. Now before I end this topic, I'm actually going to take a render and show you guys how it really looks. All right, now because you know, we have added a light, a mesh light over here, which we have given, you know, red color, which is not going to look that you know, good. I'm actually going to change it to white and reduce its intensity, not like very little over here. So don't worry about this setting, we'll be getting into the details of it in the coming topics, but let me just show you guys this. I'll just delete all this off as well, and let's take it for a render. So I'll just hit that render button, and you guys can see how these are actually looking. So we have actually got, you know, this texture. So what I would do is I would prefer to take a little close-up of this, so something like that, and I can hit a render, and you can actually see how this is looking. Right, it's looking actually quite good. We're getting the 3D look in it. It's, you know, giving us, you know, that not flat look anymore. So this is something which I really like over here. And what would be even better would be to take you guys into the interactive setting, where I can make a couple of changes while it is actually taking place. All right, so when I go back into, let's say, this material, which is this one, and let's say I first of all, in the, you know, in the SketchUp settings itself, I just change that to 1.5. so you can see that's become a little bigger. You can actually increase the bump over here to actually show you guys how that bump, you know, looks when we adjust it. You can actually go into the detail settings of it, and I can go to the placement and crop that placement out and actually reduce that slightly to make it look even more in the texture wise. You guys can see how much texture. It's actually giving that very good 3D look the way we need it, you know. And if the bump is completely reduced, you'll actually see it's flat, and this is not what we really want, right? We need that bump to give it that good definition to it. Alright, so this is basically about this. When I talk about the metal, you guys can see this is the metal. Let me just go ahead and select that. You can see if I reduce it, it becomes a darker metal, just like that. I can actually reduce the IOR to make it, you know, reduce in reflection. I can reduce the reflection all over just generally. You're seeing the glossiness, I can reduce that as well. So if I reduce the glossiness, you can actually see the scattering that's happening. So you can actually set a good material by using you know, interactive to actually see it in real time and how it's actually, you know, setting up completely. So here we're going to actually set this up something like this. The glossiness will increase a little bit just to give it that metallic look, and it's going to be completely white. Not that much white. And we've got something like that. So that's basically about how you're going to create that metal. Now when we talk about this, which is basically the whole thing that we want to see, which is something like this, and you can actually see over here that there is this whole thing happening, which is the shadow actually coming in from a certain space. You can see that are these shadows which are coming in because of our maps already. Okay, so how do we actually understand this material? Now let's have a look at it. So over here, I'm actually going to select this material now, and I'm just going to do, you can see because it's so dark, that's why it's, you know, being seen something like this. Here I'm going to actually change it to, you know, a little brighter, but it's not going to affect too much. Here I can reduce the bump. You can see that. Let me simply increase the scale size over here, something like this. Here I'm actually going to go back into the patterns, And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into the manipulation and remove this, so we get a much brighter look. So you can see that's what was the change over here. And let's go to placement. If I want to crop this out a little bit, how is it actually going to look? Is it going to look any better? I think with this it would look fine enough. Very good. And when I go back here, you can actually see the bump. If I increase the bump, we actually get more texture, more 3D look to it. And if I reduce that bump, you can see it goes back to being a flat image. So that's basically about how you guys are going to completely create such kind of things. Now remember, 3D does in the bump, it does not mean it's going to upright and come out. For that we need to add geometry, but we can still make these all changes from the quick settings. And you can see how well the wood has done over here. The wood looks really good. You can see that with all its gloss and its texture and everything, we're actually getting a good look here. And this is just a very, basic render. It's not even the high quality render. The high quality render will actually look really good, which we'll be seeing when we actually render projects. So that's it for this topic, guys. It was all about quick settings in this topic. I'll be seeing you guys in the VRay BRDF settings in the next topic. Till then, please watch this, rewind, watch all the videos, and keep moving forward. I'll see you guys in the next topic. Take care.